I agree with everything Michael said, and one of the most controversial points that he made, although he didn't make it sound controversial, is that the U.S. influence in Latin America is shrinking, and a lot of people he probably sees every day in Washington would bemoan that thought, but I actually think it's a good thing. Take the example of the Dominican Republic. The Dominican Republic, for years, its only sort of international partner of any substance was the United States. Well, today, they've got the Chinese and the Taiwanese giving away hundreds of millions of dollars to them in the hopes of capturing their vote in the UN. You have the Brazilians engaging with them as a base of their project in Haiti. You have the Venezuelans, Chavez, offering free or subsidized oil to the Dominican Republic. You have the Europeans wanting to engage with the DR, and you have the Americans, of course, trying to keep their free trade agreement functioning. You have, instead of one, if you like, big rich country after you and trying to entice you, you have 5 or 6 major international partners. I think that's a good thing. Competition is a good thing, even in international relations. The other point made was that the U.S. government and the different tools at its disposal to engage in Latin America, be it USAID, be it its influence in the Inter-American Development Bank and the World Bank, that's becoming less important in the large economies of Latin America. I mean, the IDB and the World Bank struggle to make loans in places like Brazil and Argentina and Mexico, and it is becoming apparent that Wall Street is far more important to Latin America than K Street is. And so I think that's a trend that's been going on for a long time. But to try to transition from what Michael was remarking on both the sort of big trends at play on a regional basis as well as specific issues in different countries, I want to sort of address or preface my remarks by sort of pointing out the obvious, that there is really 4 ways in which business engages in any part of the world. One is financial investment. And the vast majority of the sort of economic analysis that is generated out there is generated for an audience of financial investors. These are people who particularly buy country debt paper, but also the sort of smaller amounts of money that go into equity markets in Brazil and Chile and Colombia and Mexico. So a lot of the time, our perspective of the region and where we should be doing business is really driven by intelligence information directed to that market. But the interests of those people are very different than the interests of how most of this city engages in the region. Most of this city engages in the region in one of 3 ways, or one of 2 ways really. Either as strategic investors, there's 750 multinationals with their regional headquarters here in Latin America, and they are overseeing operations that they have in anywhere from 2 to 20 countries in the region, and they are operating business with employees on the ground, with hard assets on the ground. There are exporters. This is the gateway to the Americas. This is the logistical hub of the Americas, and most of the high-value exports into Latin America and the Caribbean pass through southern Florida. So those people are interested in consumer strength, in currency strength, and in market entry barriers. And then, of course, there's those who import products as well as services. So to give it a great example, we've heard nothing but wonderful news about Brazil for the last, really in relative terms, for the last 2 years, but particularly in the last 6 months. But if you were someone who wanted to source, say, a team of IT software writers and technicians and build an office of 100 of those, would you put them in Sao Paulo or would you put them in Buenos Aires? You'd put them in Buenos Aires. This is an industry that is outside of the interest and sort of interference of the government of Argentina, so the political risk of hiring 100 IT technicians in Buenos Aires is little. You have wages that are underpriced and a currency that's underpriced because of the way the government has tinkered with that economy to keep employment up and keep their exports competitive. Versus Brazil, where everything is overpriced, where anybody with a high school degree is basically overpaid today in Brazil, and the labor market is extremely tight. The labor rules are complex and getting in greater complexity than they are in Argentina.